Hi, everybody. Philip here from Stars and Stripes Financial Advisors. I wanted to connect with you because clearly things have changed. Things have completely changed in the world as we know it. Russia invaded Ukraine roughly 2 weeks ago, and that's going to have impacts across the globe. And so I wanted to take just a couple minutes out to discuss what some of those impacts are that you and I might be feeling, and also take a few minutes to address what we can do, if anything, when it comes to our personal financial lives. So I wanted to start with the markets. Um, Clearly, huge financial sanctions have happened when it comes to Russia. A lot of money's pouring into Ukraine in support of their fight for their independence and freedom. Um, One thing that's top of mind, I think, for some people is what's the impact of the Russian economy on my portfolio? Well, typically speaking, um, Russia falls into what's called the quote unquote emerging markets. And the emerging markets, for most people's portfolios, will represent somewhere around 10 to 15% of their total portfolio. But the emerging markets isn't just Russia, it's also China, Brazil, Colombia, South Africa. There's a number of countries in the quote unquote emerging markets category. Russia is just one of them, and Russia accounts for somewhere around 2%, depending on which fund you're looking at. So probably your total exposure to Russia's stock market, bond market is somewhere in the neighborhood of half of a percentage point, probably less. So I think half a percentage point is being, pretty conservative. It's probably quite a bit less. So from that standpoint, I want to, assuage any fears that, the collapse of the Russian economy is going to somehow decimate your portfolio. That's probably not going to be the case. Um, Furthermore, markets in general tend to handle crises pretty well. Think about both Gulf Wars, think about the Vietnam War, even during the entirety of the Cold War, the US stock market has performed quite well. It's been very robust. The global economy continues to churn on. We have a strong system in place. It's usually not wise to bet against the United States in the long term. We've got a great system, and economically, we're going to continue to do well. That I think, right? So whether you're thinking about the Great Recession, 9/11, yes, there's a dip, but we tend to bounce back pretty quickly. When it comes to geopolitical events, Vanguard put together a little one pager, if you will, recently, and it showed that with most recent geopolitical events, or on average, if you will, after the initial dip, you saw a bounce back within a year of total return of 9% on average. And in the vast majority of the cases, it was positive. I think there was only one case where it was still a negative scenario after a full 12 months. So I think that kind of covers, the markets, what we can think about in terms of what it means for your portfolio, what we've seen historically um, from past geopolitical crises that we've faced. Moving past that, another big implication is what's going to happen with commodities. Commodities are their own beast, and two that have bubbled up to the top, clearly oil and gas, but then also wheat. So from an oil and gas perspective, depending on who you listen to, you're looking at roughly 1 in 10 barrels of oil that's produced in the world is coming from Russia. So clearly they are a big supplier of oil. And with everything that's going on, we're already seeing some companies, some countries just choosing not to purchase oil and gas from Russia. There's a future scenario where the United States, some other country, may say, we're just not going to do it. And I think countries are starting to look at different ways to make that happen, so that they can be less dependent on Russian energy. So the clear consequence of that is higher oil prices for the short to medium term, if not long term. So I think that's going to hit everybody from a budgetary perspective. It's hard to avoid that. The United States and many other countries have released some of their strategic reserves to blunt some of the initial impact. But I think long term, we're looking at higher energy prices. This is an opportunity for our domestic oil and gas companies to, to really fill in that gap. It's also an opportunity for renewable energy companies to fill in that gap. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing some of our homegrown organizations lead the way. Wheat is a big one. So between Russia and Ukraine, something like 30% of the world's wheat, 25 to 30% of the world's wheat is coming out of those two countries. So whether or not it's disrupted supply chains because Ukraine's being invaded, or it's simply boycotts, embargoes, sanctions on Russian wheat production, we may also get hit in the pocketbook there as well. So just something to think about. Maybe it's time to find a substitute. More potatoes, less wheat. So those are kind of the big things on the commodity front that I wanted to bring to your attention. In the final thing that I'd like to talk about is I've seen some reports of veterans in the United States, across the world, going to join the International Brigade for Ukraine to help fight the good fight for freedom over there. That's very commendable. I do want to bring to people's attention that when it comes to your insurance policies, there's usually exclusions for health insurance, life insurance, etc., when you're talking about going to fight in a war zone. Now, if you were to go over there with a typical policy, get injured, get killed, you may find yourself without the ability to pay for health care, assuming you had access to it in the middle of a war zone. And I think importantly, life insurance in the event that you die fighting for freedom there. So I do want to point out that there are several organizations that specialize in insuring people in combat zones. Journalists use these companies all the time. Different logistics companies use these companies all the time. You can, as an individual or associated with an organization, get specialized insurance for going into a combat zone. So whether or not you want to join the fight directly or you want to go over there and support Ukraine, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you look into insuring yourself against any kind of disability, injury, and even in the worst case, insuring your life if you have dependents, for going over there. So I just wanted to take a few minutes out to address the topic. It's clearly on the top of everybody's mind. I know it's been on the top of my mind for the last couple weeks. And I wanted to put some information out there that hopefully you find helpful, useful, or enlightening. So I'm sorry for the less than ideal circumstances. we're just going to do the best that we can. We're going to keep moving forward, and we're going to keep supporting freedom, and we're going to keep supporting the Ukrainian people however we can. So, without further ado, I hope that you're all well. If you found this video helpful at all, please like, subscribe, share, follow. Lets the algorithms know that I'm putting out good information that's useful and helpful to people. So until next time, I wish you all well, and please let me know if there's any questions or concerns that you have regarding your financial life. I'd love to field them and let you know how I might approach them or think about them. All right, thanks. Take care, guys.